All right, today we're going to tackle one of the most critical safety regulations in the entire construction industry, OSHA's Standard on Fall Protection. This is all about what it takes to keep workers safe when they're working up high. So, when does just a simple drop turn into a really serious workplace danger? I mean, where's that line that OSHA draws in the sand and says, okay, now you need specific safety gear? We're going to dig into the exact threshold that protects workers from one of the biggest injury risks on any job. Okay, before we even start talking about specific heights and equipment, we have to understand the absolute foundation of this whole thing. It all starts with one core responsibility that every single employer has. And here it is. It's super straightforward. Before anyone even sets foot on an elevated surface, the employer has to make sure that surface is actually safe. Is it strong enough? Can it properly support the workers? That is job number one. No exceptions. Now, here's what's so smart about this regulation. It takes all these different, potentially complicated risks and just boils them all down to one single, incredibly important number that you need to remember. Yeah, so basically, there's a specific height that acts like a trigger. The moment a worker hits that height, a whole set of rules about fall protection suddenly kick in. And you're going to see this number pop up over and over and over again. And that magic number is 6 feet. Yep, that's it. 6 feet. If you're working on an unprotected surface that's 6 feet or more above the ground or the next level down, you've got to have fall protection. Simple as that. Okay, so we have our magic number, 6 feet. But where does it actually apply on a real construction site? Let's walk through some of the most common spots where this rule becomes absolutely critical. And what's great is how consistent this is. It doesn't matter if we're talking about the open side of a floor, the edge of a new deck that's being built, a big hole for a skylight, or even an elevated walkway. If the potential drop is 6 feet or more, you guessed it, protection is required. And this rule covers pretty much everything. We're talking about specialized work areas, like where you're hoisting materials or working with rebar and concrete forms. It even applies to the edges of deep excavations, openings in walls, and basically any kind of roof you can think of. That 6-foot rule is the standard. But, there's always an exception that proves the rule, right? And this one is really important. If you're working over dangerous equipment, think, big machinery with moving parts, you need protection even if the fall is less than 6 feet. Because in that case, it's not just about how far you fall, it's about what you might fall into. All right, so let's say the 6-foot rule is in effect and protection is required. What does that actually look like? What are the approved methods an employer can use? Let's get into the toolkit. It really comes down to 3 main systems. Think of these as your go-to tools for compliance and, more importantly, for safety. You've got your guardrails, your safety nets, and what are called personal fall arrest systems. Now, a lot of people see a harness and think, okay, that's the fall protection. But a personal fall arrest system, or a PFAS, is way more than that. It's the whole setup. You need the body harness, sure, but you also need a super strong anchorage point and a connector, like a lanyard. All 3 parts have to work together perfectly to actually save a life. Now, you might hear about something called a fall protection plan, but I want to be really clear. This is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. It's a rare exception. An employer can only use one if they can definitively prove that the main 3 systems just aren't possible to use or would actually make things more dangerous. The burden of proof is totally on them. A truly safe work site isn't just about protecting the person up high. You also have to think about everybody working down below, because a dropped hair from 20 feet can be just as lethal as a fall. So, here's the absolute bare minimum, the starting point. If there is any chance of stuff falling from above, every single person in that area must be wearing a hard hat, period. But that's just reactive. The rules also demand you be proactive and stop things from falling in the first place. And that's where these 3 strategies come in. On top of the hard hats, employers have to pick one of these proactive measures. You can either contain the hazard, think toe boards or screens. You can shield the area below with some kind of canopy, or you can just barricade the whole danger zone off so nobody can walk into it. So, we've gone through the 6-foot rule, the different systems, and even falling objects. But let's take a step back and talk about the why. Why is all of this so incredibly critical? Look, at the end of the day, this isn't about avoiding a fine from an OSHA inspector. It's about a much bigger commitment. It's about building a culture where safety is just part of the job and making absolutely sure that every single worker gets to go home to their family. That's the real bottom line. All right, let's wrap this up with the key things to remember. First, always start with a safe, solid work surface. That's non-negotiable. Second, that 6-foot rule is your primary trigger. Burn that into your brain. Third, know your big 3 options for protection: guardrails, nets, and personal fall arrest systems. And finally, don't forget to protect the folks down below from falling objects. The rules are clear, and the methods are proven. We know how to prevent these kinds of accidents. The real question is your worksite putting that knowledge into practice every single day? Because that's what it takes to keep everyone safe.
If you found this helpful or want to stay updated when this regulation changes, subscribe and support the channel. And if you need the full technical details on this CFR, click the link in the description below. See you next time.